meeting for Monday, September 15th, 2025 at 7 o'clock. Roll call.
Member Wyrick?
Here.
Member Owens?
Here.
Member Matheny?
Here.
Member Warren?
Here.
Member Peters?
Here.
Member Cleaster?
Here.
Member Orr?
Here.
7 present.
All right. Okay. Community and economic development. We're going to talk a little bit about vacant property registration, and I know it has been on our mayor's mind for quite some time. And I'm going to kind of either let the mayor kind of start it off, or Farina, or
Yeah, sure. I'll start off.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to have an open discussion and maybe get some ideas for it. But in our building, our vacant building registration, there is no vacant property or vacant land. What do we do about blighted vacant land that is in the city? And in this discussion, I don't want to mention specific properties or whatever. That's not fair. But there are going to be scenarios now and in the future where we have vacant land that is blighted, that is not on the market for sale. And us being a very landlocked city, 6.4 square miles and not a lot of open space, I do see that being a problem. Because we want to make our land as usable as possible. So it is a concern. So I did look at several other communities. Not one community treats any of it the same. Some people look at it as a nuisance approach. Some people look at it as a registration type approach, and some people look at it as a finable approach. I don't know what the answer is, but I do feel that it is a problem in neighboring communities, and it could become a problem in ours. So I just want to open that discussion to us going about the proper way to make sure that we go about addressing it. So whatever anybody wants to contribute to that.
Jason, do you have any more information with even working with Akron or different areas and what they've done, or how it's worked, how it hasn't worked?
Sure. And I think that one thing that I've really been impressed by in North Canton is the relative and overall lack of blighted properties. So I think one of the first orders of business for us is to make sure that it stays that way. So I think it's really great that this was brought up and we're having this discussion, because I think you'll find, if you look at other communities, there are a lot of places that at one point in time, they would say things like, well, we don't have to worry about any blighted or vacant properties. And then it can happen pretty quickly. You know, often, you know, it's like it is with a lot of things in life. You can have a virtuous circle or a vicious cycle where one blighted property can lead to others pretty quickly. So I would say there, like the mayor said, there are a lot of different approaches. Most communities, in my experience, do focus more on buildings, but that's not to say that they don't focus at all on land. But typically what they'll do is have a vacant property registry that tends to focus on buildings. So for example, when I was in Akron, we did create one. For a long time there wasn't one, and it has various stipulations pertaining to what the responsibilities of the vacant property owner are about coming up with a plan for reuse of the property or selling the property or demolishing the property. Land, I think land's a little more complex isn't the right word, but a little bit more nuanced, I would say. We didn't really find a whole lot of communities in Ohio that would have a vacant land registry per se. But like the mayor mentioned, and I think this would be a good thing for everyone to consider, is focusing more on blight. So perhaps reviewing our codes with our legal counsel and our staff to look at how is the property code, or with regards to nuisances or blight, could we shore it up a little bit? Could we tailor it more to our needs in terms of maybe existing blighted properties? Or I think thinking about the future is really important. I would suggest we could and should do that, and then maybe report back to council. And I think what would be really helpful here tonight is to get all of your thoughts on maybe what direction you think we should go in general, and then the staff and our law director can kind of research that and then report back to all of you.
Yeah, please.
So specific to vacant property, you have some vacant properties that realtors or realtor groups have bought up and are sitting on. They're not blighted. They're just vacant. They're taking care of the property, paying the taxes, on and on and on. If it's a foreclosure issue, usually falls to who, what government entity would carry them, but it usually ends up in a sheriff's sale. So we'd be dealing directly with them. But the question I want to speak to, I just wanted to, because there's two different types there. Does the code that we have currently speak to what blight and what is that?
You could just shore that up, because the last thing we want to do is really totally separate and then make in your own words and see and kind of assess, what you feel the issue is, and see if it should be addressed.
And we should just pursue it through that. I'm all for creating some sort of a vacant commercial property registry.
I don't remember when we started attaching names.
They put it online.
There was a time where there was, certain, people that were calling it a lot of anonymous,
Oh.
so we started attaching names,
Okay.
and it cut it down.
Well, they won't even, I had someone on Glenwood complain about their neighbors. And I'm looking at her house and I'm thinking, I wouldn't, you know, she's worried about, varmints living underneath the evergreen that's spread out and stuff of that nature. I lifted it up and I didn't see anything. I go, you can call, but I really wouldn't if I were you. Her grass was long and stuff of that nature. You know, she's just opening up where she's gonna get in more trouble than the neighbor will.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Kind of going back to just the registration of commercial vacant property. Would there be a way to frame that, not in like a punishing way, but as kind of an economic development tool where we want to know which properties are available, so we're creating a list and, you know, as a way to kind of gather the information, but and then we at least know where they are and can keep an eye on them, but also we can promote them if anyone comes to us.
It's a good idea.
Maybe we already know that. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that is a good idea, and I think also viewing registration as a potential tool, so, the memo talked a little bit about it, but at least in my opinion, you know, I'm kind of agnostic whether that's the best tool or not. Maybe we even come up with something that doesn't even involve registration, or like you said, there might be a way to do it in a way where it's more gathering information and isn't so much anything punitive or, and I was gonna add two other things quickly just related to some of the discussion. I think, and this will be something we review the code for, I think for sure, if we're talking about blight, which I think we are, we wanna make sure we have some good definitions of what blight is. And if you look at other communities, you know, typically it involves appearance or safety, or is there an uptick in crime related to that property? These are all things that we can gather data on. Is it, you know, having negative economic impacts or depressing property values and things like that? And then I think also just keeping in mind that, you know, vacant property is not inherently a bad thing. You know, it's an opportunity, and with the example of the wooded lot, you know, it's most people actually find like a vacant wooded lot as a good thing. So I think it's just important as we look at this to kind of design something that's more of a scalpel, you know, than a bludgeon, because all these property, just being vacant isn't necessarily a bad thing. And it's also, I had some discussions with our law director earlier, and he made a good point that, you know, vacant building is a lot easier to define what that is versus a vacant piece of land. You know, there's a little more ambiguity. I think if we policed it too heavily, we would be getting into, you know, debates and arguments even about, is that property in fact vacant? And, you know, what if someone has a garden on it? Is that a vacant property anymore? It's being used for some sort of an economic or at least personal use. So I think focusing on blight is probably a better approach.
I think it might be helpful in our review of what we currently have. I know we have a list of like outstanding issues that we keep an eye on or are working to address. So maybe looking at that list and saying, is there something missing in our current rules that would help us? Because I know of a vacant property, it's not land, it's a property in my ward that I've known about the whole time I've been sitting in this chair, and we know about it, but we haven't been able to do anything about it. So is there something that we could change or do that would empower us to be able to make a difference?
Agreed.
Okay. Any more comments or thoughts? All right. Well,
Thank
I
you.
know you were interested in this, and when you were kind of sitting here and we've been wanting to talk about it, so I'm glad we were able to talk about it. Okay, next up, Finance and Property Committee, Mr. Peters.
Well, I'm gonna turn this over to our finance director.
Appropriation amendments We also have supplemental revenues, so we'll go through just each of those. We're looking to hire a part-time SRO, school resource officer at St. Paul's. If we can hire them around November, I believe is the target date, then we'll have a couple months in, so we allocated some money for personnel. And then we also have a reimbursement coming back from the school, so the school's gonna cover the SRO portion of that. The fire department, you see a negative $226,250. It is not a cut. It was an allocation of the part-time budget. We had it allocated at 50% fire, 50% EMS, but we actually went this 80% EMS, 20% fire. So we're just truing out that budget. Again, it's excess budget because that's not the way it was allocated through the we have 2 donations. We received money from selling Kona Crew t-shirts at the festival, Main Street Festival, and then we also have a garden club sign donation, money to purchase a sign for the garden club at Festival. So those are the 2 donations we received. We have some rather large adjustments on here. For the capital improvements fund, you see $1,350,000, and then an $875,000, and the $13,500,000. Those are the police department renovation project, the city hall HVAC project, and the fire, obviously the fire station construction. That will, all of those things will carry over and be in the 2026 budget. We're simply running out of time for this year. So those will be carried over. In the water fund, we're reducing that by $74,000. That's the Kennedy Estates water line. That is also getting pushed into the 2026 budget. You'll see that at your in the next month when we do the budget. And the sewer fund, we're reducing that by $79,000. There were 2 different parts to that. They had a grouting and slip lining budget, and that was $35,000 under budget. And then they also were moving some street sweepings. They had an amount allocated, which should budget in $44,000 budget. So we're reducing that budget. Again, we're trying to get a good handle on what our ending balances in this funds will be, so we can have a good base for the 2026 budget.
Thanks, Gina. Anyone from council have any questions for Gina regarding those? Madam President, you need a motion to move 4A-B to council agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? We'll move back to the council agenda. All right, part B.
What's that?
Part B.
All right, so, Gina?
Okay, so this is the construction manager at risk for the fire station project. This is the design development phase, I believe. Pre-construction stage, sorry. The compensation for this part of the phase is $39,000. So we're asking to approve this piece of their contract, and again, the rest will come to you.
Is it going to be piecemeal like this for the whole construction?
No. The rest of the contract is a percent based on the guaranteed maximum price, which we received this spring. So their percent of that final number, which will be after they send everything out for bid and have final drawings, so they know what all is included in that price. And their fee, their final fee will be a percent of that.
So if we come to a situation where we go, whatever, we're going to be able to monitor that as we go, and we'll see kind of before.
And if it does go over guaranteed price, once that number is established, that's the at-risk part, where the construction manager takes that.
Anyone have questions, Gene, on that one? And I did, when I made my motion at first, it was for 4A and B, so I'll do a separate motion for 4B.
Okay, so, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 4B to the council agenda. Okay, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Adjourn.